Hey everybody, Ryan Michael Galloway here with We Don't Need No Stinking Record Company.com. I'm with Dave Williams from the Vault Studios down in Houston, Texas. And Dave, as I mentioned a few posts back, is not only a fantastic engineer and has got a lot of experience in the industry as an exec and all kinds of things, but he's also a drummer. And having a drummer who is also an engineer, every time I run into that combination, it's just magic because drums are so hard to record. And it's just wonderful to have somebody who knows the sound that they're going after and has probably spent years figuring out how to do that. But we've been talking about the physical kit and how we can dampen it, how we can change the sound of it, how we can tune it, do this, that, and the next thing. Now we come to some of the electronic components. And one of the things I've played around with at different times, Dave, have been things like noise gates. And check me if I'm wrong, if I can simply explain what a noise gate is, it's something that allows something that's loud enough to make it through, and you can hear it through the microphone, but as the sound dies away, or if it's not loud enough, it's ambient noise and it's kind of low, it tends to chop that microphone off so it doesn't continue to listen. And this might be handy, and again, I want you to talk about this and tell me if I'm wrong or right. But it might be handy if you say, for instance, I've got a microphone over the top of some, a really rattly drum or near some snares that tend to rattle, in that the rattle might not be loud enough to punch through the threshold that you set on the noise gate, but the actual strike might be. And therefore you could use it to make that drum clip or make that drum sound quieter when it's recorded. Have I got that right, and can you comment on it at all?
Sure. You know what? You're absolutely right. Again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. A lot depends on the drummer himself, how he's playing the kit. As a drummer myself, if I can speak from that angle, part of my success as a studio drummer is I already know what sound the producer's looking for. That's what I get him. I try to minimize what kind of fills I play, how many times I'm going to hit the crash cymbal. If there's a bridge section where they say go to the ride cymbal, I'm explaining all of this because I'm going to show you where noise gates sometimes can be more of a problem than a benefit.
Okay.
So, in my experience, I may generally noise gate a kick drum and perhaps the snare, depending on how hard the snare is being hit. If you gate the snare or the toms and you're playing a fill, the gate's now open and everything that's playing on the kit is now leaking into the snare or tom mic. So you're going to hear sometimes the hi-hat or the crash cymbal. You're going to hear the gate open and then close. It's going to cut the crash cymbal off. You'll have varying levels of hi-hat because you now have this noise gate opening and closing as you strike the drums. So I find that careful miking, maybe the kick drum, sometimes through EQ, I can get rid of extraneous noises and what have you. I'd rather use a little bit of compression just to tighten up the bass drum and maybe not use the noise gate. However, if it's a not so great recording, noise gates will probably help. Mainly on the kick drum and the snare. I don't like gating toms a whole lot because it's quite often picking up a lot of the overhead.
So
you put the gate on it and then you're going to hear the cymbal.
So
and it just feels very unnatural.
So I've got two questions, and one involves the noise gate and one involves the compressor, if I can remember what I was going to ask. I forgot I was going to ask about the noise gate, but let's go talk about the compressor for just, so about the compressor, let's say you are going to compress the bass drum or something like that. Now, my understanding of a compressor is it turns things up when they're quiet and turns them down when they're loud, and so is the idea of putting compression on the bass drum to keep it at kind of a more steady volume. And I just remembered my other question, which I'll let you answer this one first, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, just to kind of keep the level a little consistent. If the kick is a little boomy, you compress it a bit, it tightens up the sound a bit without really having to go to too much EQ. But sometimes you may have a drummer who, even if he's playing a steady rhythm, a couple of the kick drum hits may be louder than others or softer, and you want it to feel even. So you don't want it to be a roller coaster ride in terms of volume. Loud, soft, 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 loud.
Yeah.
You want it more consistent. And the rate of compression depends on the type music. You know, like if it's a pop ballad where it may be soft in the verses and then loud in the choruses, you know, you don't want to over compress. I use very little compression when I'm recording. Just enough just to keep us out of the danger zone. And then on mixdown, when I have the time to focus in on one aspect of the drum kit or whatever, then I will do some additional compression if it needs.
And that was coming to my next question, things like compression, and also we were talking about noise gates. Is that a post-production thing, or is that something you use more when you're actually recording, or a little bit of both? It sounds like it might be a little bit of both.
Well, I like using a little bit of noise gating while I'm recording, and then also in the mixdown. Mm-hmm. While I'm recording, I use quite a bit of outboard gear, quite a bit of outboard compressors, and I just hit them lightly, just to kind of contain things, just to keep from things becoming distorted or what have you, and ruining a perfectly good tape. Then at mixdown, in that I use quite a bit of digital gear as well, and I will process each sound individually, where I can, now I'm in mix mode, I can pay attention to the exact sound of the tom, how much noise gating we use, whether we noise gate or actually filter out a sound or what have you. You know, what makes it a little difficult also, Ryan, is quite often if I'm not only engineering a session, but I might be producing it, there are certain sounds now I want. So I'm no longer just reading meters, I'm trying to create some kind of mood or attitude. So, you know, sometimes I'll use a little bit while I'm recording, a little bit of noise gating while I'm recording, and then, you know, a little bit more later on certain items as I'm mixing down.
Gotcha. All right, perfect, man. That was really, really helpful, Dave. I'd like to talk to you in the next segment a little bit about microphones, expensive ones and cheap ones, and what we might be able to do about that. Because there's a lot of people that are trying to home record and learn this stuff. And
okay.
So anyway, I'm Ryan Michael Galloway. I'm with Dave Williams of Vault Studios in Houston, and I am with We Don't Need No Stinking Record Company.com.